All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. I'm your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you very, very much, as always, for locking in, whether you're watching this on the video side on YouTube, which if you are, please make sure that you like, subscribe to this podcast. Helps with the YouTube algorithm. It's so funny how that thing works, but it helps us grow the show on the video side. And of course, for the vast majority of you people, thank you very much for listening, wherever you get your podcast from, Spotify, Apple, wherever it may be. Again, I appreciate you very much. Happy Friday. Recording this on a Thursday, but dropping this on a Friday headed into the weekend, a weekend where the Buffalo Bills do not play, which of course, the way things have been going for a lot of the season, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this is a good weekend to catch up on some Christmas music, some Christmas shopping, some Christmas movies, Christmas TV shows. Basically, get your asses out and enjoy, or stay home and enjoy some Christmas this weekend, and don't stress out over the Buffalo Bills and the NFL. Anyway, today we're going to do a Fan Friday. And what I mean by that is this. So a lot of Friday episodes, which are usually taped Thursday night live from Imperial Pizza, I'll have a guest on, and we'll drop that episode on Friday. Don't have one this week. Don't have any guests this week. Quite frankly, don't have any singular talking points that I really wanted to hit on this week. So I'm doing what I'm going to call Fan Friday. We'll have these from time to time. Basically, I put a tweet out there, put something up on our Facebook page, and just ask fans to submit some questions or comments, and I would read some of them on the air. And that would be the extent of today's podcast. In the podcasting industry, we like to call this a filler episode. Anyway, got some pretty good ones. Not a ton, but some that might require some deeper thought than others. Before I get into today, too, and by the way, when I tell you that I am very loosely prepared for this, I am not exaggeration. No exaggerating, I should say. I spent a good chunk of my Thursday afternoon stuck at Pep Boys waiting 3 hours to put out 4 new tires, which probably took them maybe 15 minutes tops to do. Really annoying. But anyway, that's what I decided, not being able to reach out to get a guest for the show, that I would just turn it over to fans and see what you guys have to say. Before diving into this, too, I want one quick reminder. Yesterday's show, which dropped on Thursday, if you haven't listened to that or watched that yet, I'd really like for you, if you watch this show, if you enjoy the show, if you support this show, to go back and either listen to it on audio or watch it on the YouTube channel, Talking Buffalo Podcast YouTube channel. I had a gentleman on named Sean Mullen, and Sean is the director for a documentary film that's currently on Netflix called It Ain't Over, which is a story about Yogi Berra. And I don't care if you're a Yankees fan. I don't even care if you're a baseball fan. This was just a documentary that really it symbolizes what the American dream is all about. Kind of an underdog growing up, just the ultimate American dream. Yogi Berra is one of the biggest winners in the history of baseball. He's one of the best baseball players in the history of baseball. And this film that Sean did such an amazing job putting together and directing, like I said, there's plenty of baseball. It's about his career, but a lot of it is about his family, about his place in baseball history, and how, because of his colorful personality and the Yogiisms, that too many people haven't taken him serious enough as a baseball player. Really good stuff, man. And I mean, really good stuff. An amazing cast. So many great talking heads in this. Go watch it on Netflix. And if you could do me the honor of going to listen to this interview, I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorites. And, I always say at the beginning of these shows, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. And once in a while, the episodes actually are one of those and more episodes. That was one yesterday. Don't do them often, but I really enjoy and relish getting an opportunity to talk to people beyond just Buffalo sports. I've had a couple contestants on from like American Idol before, from The Voice. And I don't know, I get really fascinated with their stories. I'm so used to talking to people in sports and news media and, of course, athletes, and they're always entertaining and informative and fun to do. Don't get me wrong, but going into another world like I had never in my life before yesterday's episode ever. In fact, I was quite nervous going into the interview. I had never spoken to a film director before, much less actually interviewed him. And we went for a good 35 to 40 minutes. So I was nervous, wasn't quite sure how to approach it, what kind of style I would want to have with him. But the conversation couldn't have went better, man. Sean is an awesome guy, an awesome director. By the way, that documentary film, there's already a pretty strong Oscar buzz going on about that. In fact, he told me near the end of the episode in December, he's going to be with Billy Crystal at a theater in New York City, and they're doing a screening and a Q&A. And in part, that's for some of the people. And I don't know how the Oscars work, but I do know that this has to do with people who are, evaluating these films for Oscar nominations. But anyway, make sure you go check that out. It was a really fun episode for me to do. And again, Yankees fan or not, I think you could really enjoy this film and certainly the interview. So anyway, that's that. On for today. Like I said, I had about, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 questions and comments from fans. I got to make a confession though, and I'm taping this literally kind of on the fly. Not going to pause it. I'm not editing it. Warts and all. If I screw up a sentence, if I screw up a line, or screw up a word, is going to be in this episode because I ain't doing no editing today. And on a couple of these questions, to be completely honest with you, I forgot to jot down the person's name who actually asked it. So in a couple cases, I apologize to the people who sent these, but I don't have all the names. And I'm certainly not going to restart this episode or have to go back here live in real time just to try to dig out a couple names or two. But anyway, let's get cooking. These are almost all Bills and Sabres. I think I got one, maybe two that are got nothing to do with the Bills or Sabres, but that's about it. The first one, and I don't even have a person's name because this happened on Thursday. I'm taping this, by the way, just in a full disclaimer. It's about 5 p.m. on Thursday as I'm recording this episode. Of course, the news broke about Von Miller late morning, early afternoon on Thursday. In fact, I was en route, literally on the thruway, headed towards Pep Boys, which, by the way, I had to go all the way from West Seneca to their North Buffalo location. Couldn't get the shit done in West Seneca. But anyway, I'm on the thruway, and my phone quite literally starts blowing up, man. I get 5, 6, 7 text messages in a matter of 30 seconds all about the Von Miller stuff. So anyway, lots of people, when I open this up, were asking questions about Von Miller, thoughts about Von Miller. And this is all I'm going to say at this time. I've learned, and I guess it's a little bit of we'll make it it'll be a long dragged out one. It won't be like that, but we'll call this a condensed version of story time with Patrick Moran right now, because I've learned through both reporting as somebody who's in the media at one time, and also just as a content creator, even as a fan, I've learned, and in some cases the hard way, quite honestly, to not jump any guns when it comes to reporting something or reacting to something. No matter the story, if it's not cut and dry when it comes to the facts. When they're allegations aren't always facts. Usually, a lot of cases, they turn out to be accurate, but they're not always accurate, not initially. There's details that will emerge from a report initially that might not be out right away. So I don't want to jump headfirst in the reacting about the allegations and the arrest warrant as we tape this anyway for Von Miller. And here's what I mean specifically, and I'm just going to be honest with you and why my mindset is like this, and why I don't want to react too strongly. Well, two things. Like I said, from a reporting aspect, and I'm very wary of who I read reports from when it comes to especially big news, sensitive news, stuff where details are still emerging and not all out there. I'm really careful how I consume this because I've made this mistake myself. I used to have a blog, 14, I think this is going back now. Well, my blog was in 2009. It was somewhere around 2011, 2012. But anyway, I put out a story more than a decade ago about Sean Merriman and about being detained at a border. And I'm sure a lot of you, especially older Bills fans, will probably remember this. I was the one initially responsible for this, and it was irresponsible reporting on my part. And I'm not going to, get into too many details from that. Basically, what I'm saying is checked with one source, didn't have a second source, and more importantly, in my haste to be able to beat anyone else to a report, I didn't word things properly, and it made it really easy to pick apart, and just went very badly for me, deservedly so. And my point is that it's a really tough lesson that I had to learn the hard way, and I've learned from that. It's one of the things that you hear about or know about in the media, maybe more than anything else, is better to be right than to be first. Well, back in those days, at that time, I was so determined to be first that I left out important, significant details that might have influenced the story or how people would perceive it. Anyway, so between that, and then I go back to even I think it was 2020, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, when Ed Oliver got arrested in Texas, suspicion of a DWI and also possession of an unlawful firearm. I think that's what the accusation was at the time. And I remember a lot of fans, and to be honest with you, myself included, to some extent at least, kind of jumped the gun and said, this guy can't, how immature is he? He's never getting another contract, doesn't deserve to be in the NFL, yada, yada, blah, 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 blah. Turns out that he was not drugged. He literally didn't have a drop of alcohol in his system, passed a breathalyzer, and all the charges were dropped and erroneous. And again, a lot of people jumped the gun when it came to that. And I was, to some extent at least, one of them. So I'm not going to do that here, man. Not going to do that here. Obviously, the details and the allegations that we know about as of this recording are deplorable and disgusting. Allegedly, Von Miller put his hands around this woman who was pregnant, his girlfriend, a pregnant woman, put his hands around her, stomped on her feet, smashed her laptop, stepped on it, or tried to destroy her laptop before she could leave. And he also has, which I didn't really pay attention to be honest with you, or know much about it, a history with stuff like this. So the allegations are dead ass serious, man. And I think it's like a 3rd-degree felony warrant that he has out for his arrest right now. The only thing I will say, obviously, if this story's true, if parts of this story are true, Von Miller could go to hell. Von Miller can go to hell. From a football standpoint, he's probably done with the Buffalo Bills. He's probably done with the NFL. If, again, I don't know what the process will be, how long the details will take to come out. But as they do, I hope, especially if, there are allegations that are true, I hope the NFL take immediate, swift action against this man. Don't really have much more to add at this time when it comes to that specifically, the allegations and the ramifications at this time. I will say a lot of people, myself included, have been wondering what will happen in terms of Von Miller's contract with all these allegations and stuff like that, because the Bills, before today anyway, Von Miller was on the book for the Bills, their salary cap figure like almost $24 million next year, whether he plays or not, whether he's a shell of his former self or not. And the way his contract was structured, the Bills couldn't cut him. I mean, they could cut him, but it wouldn't have made an ounce of financial sense to cut him. They wouldn't have saved any money. Pretty much they were going to be on the books for his salary cap figure next year, whether he played effectively or whether he played at all. So I know a lot of people are wondering, well, what happens to his contract? Jay Skursky from the Buffalo News, shortly before I started recording this, put out a series of tweets, and I don't have them in front of me, to be honest with you, but he alluded to the fact that should the NFL suspend Von Miller for some moral clause, it was conduct detrimental to the team, the league, whatever, that at that point the Bills could terminate the guaranteed money. His money is no longer guaranteed. We'll find out in the coming days. I don't want to jump the gun in any of the aspects of Von Miller in terms of his contract, although it sounds like they could get out of his contract and cut him if these allegations, are turning out to be true whatsoever. Again, my feelings are I'm going to hold judgment, and it's not because I'm afraid to say anything bad about a Buffalo Bills player. Lord knows that I'm not afraid to bash a Buffalo Bill for something they do off the field or something they do on the field if it's unwarranted. But in this case, let's just wait a little bit longer. At least I'm going to choose to wait for more details to emerge, or at least the details that are out there for them maybe to be a little bit more concrete. So that's the long term, the ramifications legally and what might happen with his contract. In terms of him on the field for 2023, and if we're only talking football, I've been saying the same thing that I'll say it now. I said it last week. I said it the week before and the week before that. The Buffalo Bills are a better football team on the field on Sundays right now at this point without Von Miller anyway. Purely from a football-only standpoint, the Bills are better off without Von Miller. I've been saying it for weeks, man. He's not one of the best 4 defensive ends on this football roster right now. Hell, I'm not even sure he's one of the best 5 defensive ends on this roster right now. You have Greg Rizzo, you have Leonard Floyd, you have AJ Epinesa. That's 3 right there. I think Shaq Lawson, at least right now, is better than him in hell, man. I think Kingsley Jonathan, quite frankly, is better than the 2023 version we've seen of Von Miller. 162 snaps he's played this season for the Bills. 113 of those have been pass rush snaps. 0 sacks. 1 hit. 1 quarterback hit on 113 pass rush snaps that he's played. 7 hurries. It has just been a brutal attempt coming back from the ACL for Von Miller. And I get it to an extent. At least you had a gazillion dollars invested in the dude. You want to try to get him right, but I've been seeing it for weeks now. I feel like doing that is coming at the expense of giving away reps to somebody who should be out there, who deserves it more, and who has a better chance to make a positive thing. So I don't know, man. That's the last thing, though, I'm going to worry about right now. Like I said, it's not good. It's not good. We have very likely, my first instinct, without judging, but my first instinct is to say that we have seen the last of Von Miller in a Buffalo Bills uniform. I won't speak for the league, but I'd be surprised at this point if you ever see Von Miller play snap for the Bills again. One more, and then I'll get to a quick break here. Casey wants to know, it's obvious you think Sean McDermott should get fired. Do you think he actually will? What are the percentages you put it at? All right, full disclosure here, folks. I wrote these down, like I said, when I was at Pet Boys. God, I had to say Pep 3 times. When I was at Pet Boys, I wrote down these questions that I got. And at that time, in my notes, I simply have 17 to 20%. This was before Tim Graham from The Athletic put out something maybe around 4 p.m.ish here on Thursday afternoon, as he always does, man. He just crushes reports. He is the best reporter in this market when it comes to getting sourced information. And I don't even think it's close, quite frankly. But anyway, Tim put out a report saying that her sources talked to 4 sources. 2 of those 4 said that there is a 0 chance Sean McDermott is getting fired after this season. And also, the other 2 sources pretty much said it would take something catastrophic to go wrong near the end of the year for Sean McDermott to get fired. So my 17 and 20% that I was going to initially answer the question with is down to maybe 2%, maybe 3%. I've been saying it for weeks. I mean, if you go listen to a lot of episodes here of Talking Buffalo, I don't want to keep beating this dead horse, but I think Sean McDermott deserves to get fired. I think his game managing is just horrific. We've seen it many times this year. I don't need to relive all these games to you again. We've seen it last year. I think Sean McDermott is 8-9 now over the last 2 years in 1-score games. Of course, 13 seconds. You just keep going on and on. There is a lot of issues with Sean McDermott when it comes to being a game day head coach. We all know he's a great culture builder and, a character guy. Brought in a lot of good players to help turn this team from, ended the drought. I get all that, but I think the Bills could do better at head coach, but it doesn't really matter because I don't think it's going to happen. He's had too much success. And that's what it comes down to. They've won. They've been in the playoffs 4 straight years. Even if they miss it this year, they've been in the playoffs 4 straight years. They've won at least 10 games 4 straight years. He just got an extension this year, signed through 2027. There ain't no way in hell Terry Bagula is going to fire him because of one bad season. You got lots of excuses built in, from the injuries on the defense, which are legit, to the offense looking better after Ken Dorsey got fired. There's just a lot. Von Miller not being able to get back, can't control his health. There's just a lot of reasons that Sean McDermott, at the very least, is going to buy himself another year. So anyway, I'm going to take a real quick break because don't want to take up too much more of your time, and I'm going to fly through some of these other questions on the other side. All right, I am back here going over some questions and comments. And like I said, I'm calling this episode Fan Friday. Frank, I don't have the last name, but I know that the first name was Frank, says, how many of the Bills' final 5 games do you think they will win? I got 2 answers for you, Frank. It's either going to be 5 or it's going to be 2. I think if the Bills beat Kansas City coming off the bye in 2 weeks or a week and a half, I think the Bills are going to win out. I think the Bills can win out, and I think they will win out if they beat Kansas City. But if they lose, I think they're only going to win 2 games. Obviously, they would already lose to Kansas City. I think they will lose to either Dallas or the Chargers. One of those 2 games they drop. I think they're also going to lose the season finale at Miami because they'll probably be out of the playoffs at that point. Won't have anything to play for. Miami could be playing for potentially the number 1 seed in the conference. So I could see the Bills losing. If they lose to Kansas City, 3 for sure. I could see them being the Patriots and either one, Dallas or the Chargers, while losing the other one, losing to Miami and losing to Kansas City. But again, just so we're clear, if they beat Kansas City next week, I absolutely think the Bills could win all 5 games and win out, finish with 11 wins and 100% get in the playoffs with 11 wins. Phil, if the Bills miss the playoffs, when you look back, look back at the season, rank the games that will be the biggest reason. Number 1 to me is clear and easy, and that's Denver. First of all, they had no business, even being a close game at the end. But you could talk about all the mistakes Sean McDermott made. You could talk about James Cook fumbling. You could talk about Gabe Davis, a ball going through his hands that led to an interception. You could talk about the offense struggling. You could talk about a million different things. But at the end of the day, Denver came out there, missed a field goal on the last play of the game, and the game was quite literally over. But then there was a flag. Too many men on the Bills. Leonard Floyd didn't get off the field. Still to this day, don't know if that's on him, if that's on Matthew Smiley, if it's on McDermott himself. But bottom line is, a penalty is the only reason why they got another kick, and then they made the field goal. So if you have that one penalty and that doesn't happen, the game was literally over, and nothing had happened for 59 minutes and 55 seconds would have mattered. So I can't not have Denver, number 1. Number 2, I'm just going to go back to this last game, Philly. There's no way they should have lost that game. They were up 10 early, 10 at the half. And honestly, it should have been more than that. The defense was just atrocious in the second half. The officiating was terrible. I hated the way Sean McDermott coached at the end of the game. He coached not to lose. That game was one of those weeks where Philly was coming off a high of beating Kansas City. They had Dallas and San Francisco coming up on the schedule next. They were flat as can be, and they were just begging to get put out of their misery early in the game, or certainly by the third quarter, and the Bills didn't do it. They let them hang around long enough, and then Philly won. So that's number 2. And then number 3, I say New England. I mean, I don't care what the circumstances. You just got no business losing to freaking Matt Jones and the New England Patriots. And I know every team has 1 or 2 weeks during the season where they have one of those inexcusable losses. And for the Bills, above all else, this was one of them. And any of these 3 losses, by the way, are probably going to be the reason at the end of the day that they don't end up making the playoffs. Flicker 10965 says, are you worried about Kincaid's production going back down when Dawson Knox gets back? No. Dawson Knox might be back after the bye. Certainly early in the season, it appeared that way. The Bills wanted to use Dawson Knox as a weapon more offensively, and it kind of Dalton Kincaid was just literally a safety valve early on. But I think we've seen over the last month, 4 to 5 weeks or so, what kind of player Dalton Kincaid can be. And that is a weapon. In fact, he might at this point already be the second best weapon that the Bills have right now on the offense. Maybe he might have a slight downtick of a production just because a couple balls might go to Dawson Knox that say aren't going to Quentin Morris right now, who's getting those Dawson Knox reps. But I think Joe Brady knows that Dalton Kincaid is a very important to this offense. So I don't expect too much to change here. Cindy 104 something. What has been the most disappointing things to you personally about the Bills this season? I got to tell you what, I loaded this up because I actually got 2 clips because I don't want to say the same things that I already said. I'd rather just play the clips for you. Number 1 is Sean McDermott, and we're not going to talk about any more about Sean McDermott. I've already told you how I feel about that. Number 2, and this isn't necessarily the biggest thing, but to me, it actually kind of is one of the bigger things. I really thought the Bills' wide receiver additions of Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy were going to pay off much more than they have. I had an episode on Tuesday with PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective. We talked about that. So rather than rehash what I already said, let me just actually play that clip for you again right now. Here it is.
It's very disappointing to see Sherfield and Hardy, who I had high hopes for coming into the season, just been, like you said, healthy scratch for Hardy, and Sherfield,
they've been useless.
When he's on the field, he's running the wrong routes.
Offensive production wise, they've been as close to useless as you can get. And to me, that's the crazy thing, because I said when you added Hardy and Sherfield, so I said it on the show, I thought to myself instantly, I told anyone who would listen, I said, worst case, and I mean worst case, Hardy and Sherfield are at least a modest upgrade from Isaiah McKenzie and Jake Kumaro. That was like my worst case scenario. As it turns out, and we're now 12 games into a season, how much is really going to change down the stretch here? I would tell you this. If you could give me Isaiah McKenzie and Jake Kumaro, is Jake Kumaro even play football anymore? I honestly don't even know. But if I could have Isaiah McKenzie and Jake Kumaro, and I could jettison Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield right now, I'd do it in a second. Isn't that nuts? All right, so that was what me and PK talking about with Trent Sherfield, Deontay Hardy. Highly, highly disappointing. And then the other one, I'm going to play the clip from this as well. This is just from a couple days ago after my film episode, actually, my film and PFF grades analysis episode. And I was talking about the Bills' defensive tackles outside of Ed Oliver, of course, after DaQuan Jones went down. I thought that, at least on paper anyway, the depth, strength of this football team would have been the depth of the defensive tackle position. You got DaQuan and Ed, and then you sign Poona Ford. You have Jordan Phillips, who's been around this rodeo several times, and then Tim Settle going into his second year with the Bills. I'm like, this is going to be a position of strength, big time. But no. DaQuan Jones goes down for the season, and Ed Oliver's still been, for the most part anyway, really, really good, but not getting anything from Phillips and Settle, especially Phillips. And let me play that clip for you. Phillips, overall grade this season, 38.6. Let me put some context in that. There is 137 defensive tackles in the NFL that have played a minimum of 20% of their team snaps this year. Of those 137, Jordan Phillips' grade for the season is 5th worst, 133 out of 137. His tackling is atrocious. 25.4 for the season. Again, 137 eligible defensive tackles. He's 135. Third from the bottom of the entire NFL. 43.5 overall grade he had on Sunday. He had a 25.2 tackle grade, which again is just abysmal. He had a stupid offsides penalty that gave Philly a first down. I think it was either 3rd or 4th and 2, or I can't remember what it was, but he made it. It was a stupid penalty, which is like clockwork for him. Should have had a personal foul penalty. He got away with one, which would have been right in line with him getting one of those pretty much every week too. The only thing Jordan Phillips is good at is when he's at home and riling the fans up. Well, let me take that back. Let's be fair here. He's a splash player. He'll make a play down and in, but on any kind of consistent basis when it comes to run defense, when it comes to tackling, when it comes to disappearing for long, long stretches. It's unbelievable how inept Jordan Phillips has been for the Bills. And the sad thing is Tim Settle might actually be worse. Tim Settle, 37.5 grade for this game in Philly, PFF grade, worse on the entire football team. And you watch the film, he was pushed all over the place. Philadelphia's left guard, I've seen this at least 3 times. Landon Dickerson, and he's a good guard, don't get me wrong. One-on-one, no help from the center, one-on-one, he was pushing around Tim Settle like a sack of potatoes. It was one run. DeAndre Swift went right up the B gap, and I'm telling you, Tim Settle probably got pushed 3-4 yards to the right side. There's another one. In fact, I clipped. I'm gonna, so I don't want to keep that clip going. Not really a need to anymore. But you get the point there. Bills defensive tackles, their depth there. Bills receiving depth after Stephon Diggs, and I suppose Gabe Davis too. That's been really bad, and of course, Sean McDermott. So that would be the 3 things that have disappointed me the most about this team this year. Besides, obviously, their record, of course. Who do you think is the most underrated player on the Bills? I'm going to be honest with you, man. I didn't think of him initially, but I got to give credit to Tone Pucks, who I do a show with mostly here once a week. He made a comment to me after the Philly game. Christian Benford, they barely even threw at him. And I'm like, you know what? You're right, man. What I did is did a little dive into some of the numbers he's put up this year, and they've been really impressive. 34 targets, 22 receptions. He's only given up 268 yards receiving the season, just 50 yards after the catch. He's only allowed 1 touchdown reception against him. He's got 5 pass breakups. His best force, and this is per PFF, by the way, best force incompletion percentage, 21% on the team. NFL quarterback rating against him was 98.7. There's 9 guys in the secondary who have worse percentages than that. I think he's a really solid player with a good future. I think he's going to be locked in going forward now as that CB2. And of course, the good news about a guy like Christian Benford is he's under team control, not just for next year, but the year after that as well. So if you're looking for, and by the way, the season's obviously not over. This could go terribly wrong for him over the last 5 weeks. But at this point, as things stand right now, I think Christian Benford is definitely one of the most underrated players on this team. Again, and I apologize here because I forgot to write down the people on some of these questions. Who are some of the key Bills free agents this offseason? I hate this question only because they haven't played the Chiefs yet. If the Bills go and lose to the Chiefs next week, then I would have loved this question. But I just feel like it's a little bit premature because when you're asking about stuff like this, that pretty much is you throwing, the white flag in on this 2023 season. But I am going to answer it for you anyway. This is going to be, and I say I hate talking about it. I want to avoid talking about this now because, folks, we've had a couple off seasons with the Bills where they've been able to add and add and add. Whether it's splash players like Stephon Diggs or Von Miller, or whether it's lots and lots and lots of depth style players like a Leonard Floyd, whether they work or not, like a Poona Ford, like a Connor McGovern, like a Deontay Hardy. You get the option to make a lot of moves like that. And I don't think that's going to be the case next year. The Bills have a shitload of their own free agents that they need to make decisions on and worry about. And a lot of these guys are going to walk. And I think the 2024 Buffalo Bills is going to look significantly different than what you've seen this year for sure. Key free agents, Micah Hyde. And we'll talk about, future episodes, hopefully not for a while. We'll talk about what their futures may or may not be with the team, kind of dive into what our thoughts are. But that's another episode for another time. But to answer your question, the key free agents, Micah Hyde, Jaquan Jones, Leonard Floyd, AJ Epinesa, Gabe Davis. Those are like your top tier Bills free agents here at the end of the season. Unrestricted free agents too. There's also tons of other ones too. Tim Settle, Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, Dane Jackson, Taylor Rapp, Tyrell Dodson, Trent Sherfield, Kyle Allen. So they'll probably be looking for another QB2 next year. David Edwards, who's been that 6th offensive lineman in that big tight end spot. What Bobby Hart did last year, that's been pretty much David Edwards this year. So there's a lot of free agents of their own that they're going to have to make decisions on in this offseason. In terms of cap hits, now you didn't ask me about this, but I'm going to throw this out there right now since we're talking about change in the offseason and some numbers to throw out. 2024 cap hits. For context, when I tell you that the Bills are not going to be able to be big spenders this offseason, that's not really an option. It's just the way it's going to be. And here's a couple of big reasons why. Josh Allen, his cap hit goes from $18 million this year to $47 million next year. Trey White, $16.6 million cap hit next year. He could be a cut candidate, actually. Stephon Diggs, cap this year, 14.8. Next year, 27.8. That's a $13 million jump. Von Miller, if he's here. Personally, again, not to jump the gun, but I'm not going to sweat Von Miller's financials too much right now. Let's just leave it at that. But anyway, $23.8 million next year is his current, as things stand at this moment, cap figure, which is at 7.9 this year. So goddamn, man, you're talking $16 million jump for him. Might not matter. Anyway, Dawson Knox, $14.4 million cap hit next year. And they're stuck with that, by the way. Deion Dawkins, 16.6 up from 10.9. So that's over a $5 million jump. So there's going to be some big ass cap numbers for the Bills, along with some big time free agent decisions to make. Potential cuts. I just jotted down a few of these real quick. Mitch Morse, Bills could save $3 million by cutting him. They would eat $8 million in dead cap money if they cut him. That's pre-June 1st. After June 1st, they could save $6 million, and it will be 5.3 in dead money. I think Mitch Morse is a legitimate cut candidate between his age, between the cap, between Ryan Bates potentially being able to take over at center, Trey White. And again, we'll deep dive into him more at another time, but they could save $10.4 million by cutting him while eating 6.3 dead cap space. With a post-June cut, pre-June 1st, 6.2 million saved, 10.3 dead. So look, that's in play. Between Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford, Trey White's in play. Dawson Knox, again, not an option. Even post-June 1st, they would save less than $2 million and they would have to eat over $12 million in dead cap space. So Dawson Knox, like him or not, he ain't going nowhere next year. Jordan Poyer, a prime cut candidate. $5.9 million the Bills could save next year by cutting him. They would only have to eat $2 million in dead cap space. So you might be living in a world here with the Buffalo Bills where Hyde and Poyer are both gone after this season. Deontay Hardy, I feel like that's a formality that he's going to get cut. The Bills could save over $4 million by cutting him, 1.6 in dead cap space. And then Saron Neal. I went special teams hunting to try to find a decent contract that they can unload. Saron Neal, you could save $2.8 million by cutting him. So yeah, hopefully we won't have to really think about it much yet, but another loss, 2 at the most, and it's definitely off-season mode time on Talking Buffalo and all content creator platforms out there. All right, a couple more here. I bet you couldn't come up with three great non-Josh Allen things about the Bills. Yes, I can. I had to write them down, though. Terrell Bernard, him and a healthy Matt Milano, I think that makes for a great linebacker combination in 2024. I think Terrell Bernard has been maybe my biggest, in a pleasant way, Bills surprise. I didn't think anything of him before the season. I hated that he was a starter. He has proven me wrong. He's good. And a healthy Matt Milano, we saw it through the first month of the season. Lethal linebacking combination. So I like that a lot. I think Ed Oliver and Greg Rizzo are really strong anchors for the defensive line beyond this year. Who knows what's going to be behind them now? Between a lot of free agents, behind the Von Miller situation, I don't know. But I do like that Ed Oliver and Greg Rizzo are core parts of that D-line for next year. And then, of course, look, Stephon Diggs. And I am going to assume he's going to be back. It's not impossible, like some people are telling you, to trade him. It would be very difficult, and the Bills would have to eat a lot of money. So I think shit would have to get really, really ugly, personally, to deal Stephon. So I'm going to assume he's going to be back here. And look, he's so good. he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL, and he's so good that I feel like as much as we talk about him, I feel like we don't even talk about him enough when it comes to what he does on the field. He's taken for granted. And then the bonus one that I haven't even give you a bonus, man. Dalton Kincaid, I just mentioned him a few minutes ago. I think he's potentially got like that top 5 tight end in the wide, amongst the league ability here. He could be mentioned in that same breath as a Travis Kelce and a TJ Hockenson or George Kittle as Travis Kelce's career winds down. Of course, I'm not talking about prime Travis Kelce. That's a little bit ridiculous there, but I like Kincaid a lot. So there's still, even if the Bills miss the playoffs, it'll be a huge disappointment, but there's lots of positives about this football team too. Hit me with your most unpopular Bills opinion. I don't want to get beat up too much, but I'm going to say what I said last week. I'm not as high on O'Cyrus Torrence as most, and I'm not a film guy. I don't appreciate offensive linemen and some of the nuances that they could bring to a team and some of the things they do compared to guys like Joe Marino and Eric Turner. And I know they'll beat my ass and, deservedly so, I'm sure, for saying stuff like this, but I don't know. He's looked okay to me. I mean, he's only a rookie and I'm sure he'll improve some, but to me, he's just all right. And I'm not sure his ceiling is huge. Could be wrong, but I don't know. I just think of, you can go get a guard in the 3rd or 4th round who could play adequately well. And then, Tank Dell's a guy for the Houston Texans. And it's not just one of those after the fact armchair quarterback the next day kind of deals. I remember lots and lots and lots of people, including those I had on my show during draft season, talking about how much they'd love to have Tank Dell on this team. So it's not like Tank Dell being good should be a shocker. But just imagine if the Bills had taken Tank Dell in the 2nd round. You could be looking at Dalton Kincaid and Tank Dell right now as receivers for Josh Allen. And that just, man, that would have been fun. Anyway, O'Cyrus Torrence doesn't stink. I just think he's all right. I don't know how unpopular of an opinion that is. I think, like I said, I think the film guys, the really smart football people, will probably beat me up over that. And, maybe it's deserved. All right, that's it for the Bills questions here. Why wouldn't Pat Kane not choose the Sabres? Everything seemed like a perfect fit for him there. Not sure about that. In fact, going by some people, it sounds like the Bills, or not the Bills, still got the Bills in my mind. Sounds like the Sabres may have dodged a bullet. I got one more clip. It's about a minute and a half or so that I want to play for you. It was from about 2 weeks ago. I had Chad DeDominicis with me in an episode taped live at Imperial, and we talked about Pat Kane. And I didn't know what Chad would think about signing him, if it was a good deal or not. But I want you to listen to this because Chad more or less says that he didn't think that signing Kane would be a good deal. Let me play that back and you can hear what he had to say about it.
If they were getting Patrick Kane from 2018, I think we're having a different conversation.
Okay.
This is a player who turns 35 years old on Sunday. This is a player who just had a surgery that only one player has come back, and Ed Jovanovski played 37 games, and then that was it. Nick Backstrom just had the surgery, Washington Capitals. He had it, said he felt great, 100%, played, wasn't the same player, recently just said he's taking time away from the game to go back and deal because he doesn't feel right. It did major surgery. And then on top of all of those things, age, curve, surgery, there is decline in his game. There was decline at the end in Chicago. I understand it was a bad team, but that's not just that. He went to New York, and they didn't get what they hoped out of there. I mean, the obvious point as to how the league feels about him was the return that the Blackhawks got from the Rangers, which was almost next to nothing.
True.
And that's just, and I think in the right system, in the right areas, maybe he could be an effective player. But I mean, yeah, on one hand, yeah, I understand this is Kevin Adams not sitting on his hands if he does do this, which he's done in the past and not helped his team. So yes, on one hand, I think it is doing that, which is good. But on the other hand, I don't know if this is the move that makes his team better. Right. And then you're going to use up all of your cap space remaining when nobody else in the league has cap space besides you, so you don't have an advantage. You're going to use it on this player that might not help you. Might not even be able to play once he gets going. And then, not like you can you could put him in LTIR, but then it's a whole thing, and it's cap and over time, and it accumulates, and yeah. So it's I've made it very clear that I am not a fan of it. I think there is avenues to where it could slightly work, where it's not that bad of an idea. But I just overall, I don't think this is what they need right now.
All right, so that was Chad DiDomenicis. He was not on board with the Sabres signing Patrick Kane. He thought that team might be better off without doing it, and we're going to find out because Pat Kane, of course, signed with the Detroit Red Wings. The only thing I'll say about the Sabres is this. Just they got to tread water now. For the next month or so, all I want to do is see this team tread water. They're not going to make the playoffs in December, but they could miss out on the playoffs in December. If they have a horrible month, they could fall behind, 8 to 10 points, a bunch of teams. They may not be able to get out of that hole. So right now, to me, it's just about treading water. And you get, hopefully by the end of this year, early into 2024, in about a month or so, you're going to get Tage Thompson back 100%. You're going to get Jack Quinn back. I think that is going to be huge, huge, huge additions to this lineup. Zach Benson, who looks like he might stay for the whole season now, he'll improve. You might get Rosane and Kulik back up, or Rosane's up now. Kulik's back in Rochester. But these guys, with some more games and time, they might get better. So I like this Sabres team. I do. Especially if UPL can keep playing great at net. But just tread water right now. Don't fall off. You're not going to get to, they're not going to get ahead. Just tread water and don't fall off right now. But yeah, Pat Kane would have been a fun story. It would have been fun to do episodes at Imperial Pizza with some South Buffalo people going nuts at the, mention of Pat Kane. But I think the team is just fine not signing him. Someone else said, do you think the Sabres gave up on Levi too soon and sent him to the minors? May wreck his confidence. How about a one-word answer? No, I don't. Not at all. He needs games. UPL's hot. If you're serious right now, if you're Kevin Adams and your primary goal is to make the playoffs this season, then you got to ride the hot hand, and that's clearly UPL right now. Devon Levi has looked a little bit shaky, and he's young. There should be nothing, zero to worry about when it comes to Devon Levi. Let him go to Rochester. Let him get the work. Let him get the reps. Let him get the game. Let him get some experience. Let him work on some things. And he said this to the media this week too. So I know he's on board with it. I don't think it's a controversy. I don't think there's any issue. I think it's the completely smart thing to do with Levi down there, or up there, I should say, in Rochester. Anyway, last two questions here. Not even sports. Do you like, and somebody knows that out, and again, I don't have the names in front of me, so I apologize, but do you like CM Punk coming back to the WWE? Yes and no. I like it because I'm not going to lie. It's interesting. It does make, at least short term anyway, certainly more interesting. Case in point, I was recording an episode with PK Monday night this past week. The Sabres, it was after they beat the Rangers, and we did a show live at 10 o'clock, and I knew CM Punk was going to be on Raw. First time on Raw in 10 years. And I DVR'd in the living room. I went to the living room and I set the DVR to record Raw. I haven't set that DVR to record Monday Night Raw. I don't even know the last time, but I did because I knew CM Punk was going to have a promo at the end. You want to see how it's going to play out if you're a wrestling fan. If you're not a wrestling fan, you don't give a shit, but I do. So I want to see how it's going to play out. I want to see what feuds he gets into. I want to see, reports, how the locker room's dealing with it. I want to see who he works with in a program, stuff like that. Short term, sure. It's exciting. He's a huge name. He's a big draw. He's a ratings number. He's a ratings bonanza. There's no question about it. Long term, I would worry about it for WWE's standpoint. I mean, we've seen how things have played out with him in recent years. So sure, maybe long term, I don't know if it's a good fit, but certainly right now, anyway, I'm not going to lie, as a wrestling fan, I'm pretty interested and excited about it, which is funny because I'm not really a CM Punk fan. I don't think he's all that great of a wrestler. And at some point, I'll probably get bored, especially if he is a face. I think I'll get bored with hearing him talk about the voice of the voiceless and patronizing the fans. I personally would love to see a arrogant prick. I'm here for the money. You need me more than I need you. Complete CM Punk heel turn. That might get me more invested in his character. Wrestling wise, I really don't give a shit about him, and I'll cool off on the thought of him being in WWE soon enough. But if he's a heel, that might be a different story. Last question, Christmas movie recommendations. I haven't really got into it yet, but I'm about to. I will tell you though, Wednesday night, last night, in fact, I watched was on Netflix. It was called The Holiday Calendar, and it's not new. It's from like 2018. I don't know the people who are in the cast. Anyway, I like to watch these movies, and then I usually make funny Facebook statuses kind of mocking the movies, because a lot of Christmas movies are, not counting the classics, of course, are pretty cheesy and stupid, like the Hallmark, the HGTV type Christmas movies. This one was actually pretty good, though. It's called The Holiday Calendar. It's about an advent calendar. The girl, God, I can't remember her name, Amy Grant maybe or something. She's like in the Vampire Diaries. She's awesome. She's gorgeous, great actress. I was invested in her. It was a good movie. So I in terms of new movies, or at least movies I haven't seen, I don't have any recommendations yet. I think Scrooge is still my favorite Christmas movie of all time. The first Santa Claus with Tim Allen, that's really high up there. The Preacher's Wife with Denzel and Whitney, that is really high up there too. The Ref with Dennis Leary, I thought that was a great Christmas movie as well. So I don't know, maybe in another week or so, I'll probably watch 4 or 5 newer ones, or at least ones that I haven't seen, and I'll have some thoughts on some of those. But anyway, all right, I've taken up way too much time here. I always do that shit, man. I always have a solo episode. I always say I'm going to get you out of here quick, and then my lips just start blabbing, my gums start yapping, and I can't shut myself up. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Like I said at the beginning, man, no Bills football this week. Get out and enjoy Christmas weekend, man. First weekend of December, get some shopping done, walk around, do some fun stuff, put on some Christmas music, put on a Christmas movie, enjoy it. Don't stress out, because come next week, the Bills season, quite literally, in my opinion anyway, is completely on the line. Do or die against the Kansas City Chiefs. But we'll be on that all of next week. Enjoy the weekend. Talk to you soon.